This morning, I'm talking about the soul and karma. The last few Sundays, I've been talking about the solar angel, and I will be this morning as well, even though the title is called The Soul and Karma, and you'll see why. So let me do a short review about the solar angel. If you are a student of the wisdom teachings, you will find that the solar angel is referred to in many esoteric groups as the soul. And the soul is written with a capital S. It is also called the transpersonal self and the inner guide. The solar angel is anchored in the pineal gland and uses the pineal gland as a station of communication within the human being. And some people are literally able to experience, in the beginning, a stimulation of that pineal center, and then over time, a frequency takes place where you can hear a bell, and that bell is like a call where you're hearing intuitive ideas, receiving inspirational energy that causes you to aspire to be a different person, to make different decisions from what you would normally have made before you began to hear the whispering of your solar angel. So the solar angel is anchored in the pineal gland, which is interesting to read about, the study. If you have any of the books of the teachings related to the human mechanism, you'll learn more and more about what the pineal gland is. And essentially it's called the head center. This also is interesting to know, is that the solar angel is not attached in any way to the human being. In other words, the solar angel is not going to be handicapped by our physical, emotional, and mental limitations and obstacles. The solar angel is free from time and space. You know, can you imagine that being free? As we're running here this morning from time and space to get here on time. The solar angel is free from time and space and has its own independent life. So where we have a relationship, a one-on-one relationship with the solar angel, it does have its own independent life, its own path of development and progress, and its own way of service. The solar angel is also our inner guide. It's this inner guide that conveys to our mind new ideas, inspiration, and revelation. So how does it work? You can be writing a lecture and all of a sudden you begin to see symbols. Or you can, like a hologram, you can see a paragraph of what you should insert into your lecture. Or the idea will say you're on the wrong track with what you are going to lecture about. You need to write and speak about this. It elevates your consciousness. It elevates your beingness for that period of time, as long as the lecture is for something greater than yourself. And of course, the lectures I'm talking about are people that give lectures on the teaching. So the solar angel is our inner guide. So this morning, talking about the soul and karma. The soul will be with the capital S. soul, which is also the solar angel. So I'll be using them interchangeably. Just as our soul, our solar angel, is not handicapped by our limitations, the same thing is true of karma. The karma of a person and the plan of the soul do not conflict, because the soul bases its plans on our karmic records. The karmic records and the potentials that we demonstrate. But certain changes can take place. It does happen. This is so interesting to really think about, that it does happen that due to various influences, a person may do unexpected things that create conflict with the plan of their soul, the solar angel. And the person may fail to fulfill that part of the plan. When this occurs, there is a reflection in your astrological chart. When a person's sun and moon are in the same sign, for example. So this, if I can explain it a little more succinctly, that what we see in our horoscope today is the reflection of previous incarnations. And what I'm going to share with you now are some of the signatures in your astrological chart that indicates that you did some unexpected things that created conflict between what your plan was, according to the soul, and what you ultimately did to create the obstacle. But specifically, when the sun and the moon are in the same sign, let's say that you're a Leo, and your moon is also was found in Leo on the day you were born, that's an indication right there that you had a problem. You created a conflict. You stepped outside of the expression of your plan. And this incarnation, you're here to justify the problem and to rectify it. That's the karma. The significant indicates when the sun and moon are in the same sign that you did little in your immediate last life. And in this lifetime, you're going to have to work very hard to overcome the inertia. So where you may have been given an opportunity in your immediate last life to adjust and correct the conflict when you steps outside of the plan of your soul, this life with the sun and moon in the same sign is saying, you really didn't do much in your last life to spiritually progress, so you're going to really have to work hard to overcome inertia in this life. If inertia is overcome, then your human soul will be given opportunities to work harder and pay his debts from previous lives. Yet, if past, your life will be adjusted, and now you're going to be back in sync with the plan that your solar angel has for you. Another astrological signature which creates hindrances for the evolution of your human soul is when the planet Saturn and the moon, or Saturn and the sun, are in difficult aspect with one another. Difficult aspect would be the angle between the Saturn and moon, or Saturn and the sun. And the angle of challenge, as I call it, would be a conjunction. It would be an opposition to one another, or a square to each other. It takes a lot of hard work, spiritual dedication, and purification to be released from this energy so the soul can become sensitive to the plan of his solar angel. So it's very interesting when you think esoterically about a person's horoscope, how it reflects and brings in things that you can work with. And these things that you can work with are recognized by the term signature. Your esoteric astrologer will recognize certain signatures, like a child will be born that will have a proclivity toward drug abuse or alcohol abuse. Now, medical science indicates that this means the child has genetics, with a family, someone in the family was an alcoholic or a drug addict. But astrology is something different. It goes a little deeper than that. And for example, you can be born into a family of alcoholics so that you can pay this debt. So even though the signature says you will be super sensitive to alcohol and drugs, that super sensitivity allows you to deny misuse. In fact, perhaps become a therapist or a psychologist or psychiatrist to help people overcome that sensitivity or allergy to drugs and alcohol. All of these things can be seen in the chart if it's part of the plan of your solar angel for you to work on in this lifetime. Sun and rising sign. Another astrological and most powerful signature is when the sun and the rising sign are in the same sign. Not the sun and moon, but the sun and rising sign. The good news is that there is an opportunity to pay your karmic debt more quickly and early on in your life, adjusting your life to the plan of the solar angel when you're young. These opportunities are related to certain virtues that are related to the rising sign. And these virtues can be learned about in the book called Esoteric Healing. Also, I think esoteric astrology, both by the Tibetan, will share some of this information, the specifics with you of what virtues are related to your rising sign, what virtues are related to your sun sign. And then these virtues, there's also called virtues to be acquired. So once you had developed and cultivated and harmonized these virtues into your day-to-day life, then your beingness changes, your consciousness broadens, and an opportunity now is coming to you to acquire higher virtues and higher principles which are related to the higher mind. This all comes about when a person's sun and rising sign are in the same sign. The charts that I've investigated suggest that the person has an important goal and service to accomplish in this life, and by developing the virtues related to the rising sign, they are empowered to pay off certain karmic debts more rapidly and thus able to quickly adjust their life to the goal. And this is what in Agni Yoga is called living a life of goal-fittedness. Now the rising sign. The rising sign of your chart indicates the goal for this life, the immediate soul purpose for this incarnation, the purpose of your human soul. The rising sign works for your future, and it prevents the force which if rightly used, will lead you to success. That's your rising sign. The rising sign represents the highest or sattvic energy of the human soul and can produce the right relationship between the higher self and personality in any one incarnation. So that's part of your birth chart. So let's say that you have Leo rising in your horoscope. What does this mean? It means you should pay attention to the cycles that affect, the astrological cycles that affect your rising sign, because it's during those cycles, whether it's to your rising sign or activates the Saturn and Moon and Saturn Sun angles to one another, that's the time of opportunity to pay your karmic debts. The moon. The moon refers to the past and where the prison of the human soul is to be found. Of course, it's not actually the moon, but certain planets that are related to the moon, esoterically speaking, like the planets which rule the moon sign or certain esoteric factors. These factors will reflect your handicap. And typically, it is the influence of the moon that will overshadow the personality of the person until they are at least 14 to 15 years old. Now, if the individual is not awakened spiritually and they are following a path of inertia, then it doesn't make any difference when these cycles come around and trigger, these different signatures in the chart, because they're not responsive to the inspiration and the visions and the symbols that the solar angel is trying to transmit to you. The plan of the soul is to help us overcome vices and transgressions and to help us develop our potentials. It is always the plan of the solar angel to prepare us in such a way that we take part consciously in our divine plan. When disciples are accepted by the master, they are mostly under the control of the hierarchy. The disciples at this time are mostly under control of the hierarchy, which acts as the collective solar angel for humanity. Sometimes people believe if one's life is easy, that person is an advanced soul. But this is not so. Great and advanced souls choose different lives full of dangers and suffering in order to accelerate their evolution and to pay more quickly debts accumulated in past karma. I remember reading in one of the volumes of letters by Helena Rourke when she was talking about astrological charts. And she says the more difficult the astrological chart is, the more advanced that student or disciple is. That doesn't mean that the whole chart is something to be afraid of. A chart like that serves as a map of the direction that you want to take your life toward. It's very interesting to see that, for example, I don't want to get too further into astrology, but let's say that your Saturn was in Aries and your moon is in Cancer, and that a cycle comes along and triggers that aspect between those two planets. Now, remember I was saying the moon rules the past? Now you know that the karma you are going through, the difficulties you are going through, are going to be given an opportunity to resolve themselves, and that conjunction or square or opposition can turn in symbolically to a trine. And a trine is where, let's say, your good luck is, your good fortune is. But you have to get through the cycle of the square or the conjunction or the opposition, pay your debts, and now it's turned into, esoterically, it's turned into a trine. Right before you are born, the soul shows you a very detailed film of all that is going to happen to you. This film is produced by the information contained in what's called permanent atoms, the recording devices that record all events and experiences and thoughts of your physical, emotional, and mental bodies. So these main factors are emphasized in the film. The first one is the factor of dangers waiting for you in the life to come. That will be put on the film and impressed upon your soul as you come into incarnation. The second is opportunities that will be presented to you in that life. So it's this film, some people call it the Akashic Record. I don't. I take it beyond the Akashic Record, because now it has to do with your relationship with your, I say this, your capital S self, your true self, your true being. And so what happens is that as this film is being played for you, your beingness captures and will remember through the atomic structure of your bodies dangers. You're going to be aware of these dangers. You're going to be aware of certain opportunities that are going to be given to you in your life. And the third point is karmic liabilities, which must be paid off and will be very difficult to avoid. So what that means basically is that there's a part of us, when we are going through a difficult situation, if we've been working on ourselves in this life and we've developed a sensitivity to the inner guidance of our solar angel, when we go through this difficulty, we're going to recognize it and honor it as this is a karmic liability, that I am now being given an opportunity to change into a trine. How about that? Put it the best way. Take it from a square, an opposition, or a conjunction into a trine, and now you have freedom or clear passage in your future from this karma. Of course, it is possible to overcome karmic liabilities and to escape them. For example, your solar angel might show you that while traveling on the freeway, there is a possibility that a drunken person will hit your car. How can you escape from this? If you pray, fast, read good books, and do good things for other people, your karma, your good karma, will spare you, and you will no longer be in danger when the predestined time comes. My life has been spared 7 times that I know of. Imagine that, 7 times. 3 times it was from a fire, another one was a health situation, and 3 others were related to travel. Each time I knew my life had been spared. I know that there were other times as well, but seemingly less obvious. Master Moria, speaking through his books, said, if you do not know how many times daily you escape danger, and you do not show gratitude to the Lord. I'm going to repeat this. He says, you do not know how many times daily you escape danger, and you do not show gratitude to the Lord. If you take time to consider carefully those dangers from which you have been miraculously saved, you will find crucial information behind that event. But in reality, normally, it is almost impossible to run away from karmic liabilities. Your solar angel will show, for example, that you are going to be shot and that you need to be prepared. Many great leaders feel 1 or 2 hours beforehand that they are going to be shot, or that they are going to have a heart attack and pass away, or their solar angel will remind them in dreams. Some leaders and people in higher positions feel these things. Sometimes, if they do not, their solar angel reminds them through a vision, through an accident, or through a dream. Sometimes we go to a conference or we attend a spiritual class and we think, wow, this was just a coincidence that it was only yesterday I saw an ad in the paper or a flyer and I decided to attend. They don't recognize the connectiveness of that event, that ad, and that action to the plan of their soul. It's very interesting. If you are a teacher, you are going to realize that whoever is coming to your classes, your spiritual classes, is drawn by your own magnetism or sent by karma, by the person's solar angel or maybe even a master. We are warned to handle these people very carefully and try to see what we can do for them, for these very precious ones. There are also 3 main components, let's say, that will hold a person responsible for their failures. The solar angel is one, one's teacher is a second, and one's karma is a third. When you are held responsible for the harm you cause, you will continue to live in pain and suffering until you begin developing the sense called responsibility. For example, here's a story. A couple went through an ugly divorce, one in which there were 4 children. The mother was not allowed to spend time. The mother would not allow the children to spend time with the father and tried her best to turn the children against their father. During this cycle, the mother suffered endlessly and spent many dark days in depression and emotional pain. Then one day she decided she needed help in caring for the children and asked the kids' father to spend some time with them. As a result, the children became happier and healthier and successful in school and in their social life. The mother went to a therapist for mental health and began her road to recovery. You see, she began to develop that sense of responsibility, a great virtue. How did this happen? Her solar angel came to her in a dream and told her she was in danger if she did not let her children be cared for by their father. The solar angel told her it was her duty to put her children with their father. I think that is so beautiful. So let me close with this. Immediately when you enter the path of spirituality, certain events occur in your life. It is important for you to see and observe these things. Now, for example, a person say, well, How can I know when I'm entering the path of spirituality? You can go back to your astrology chart, back to the cycles, and of course hindsight is always easier than foresight, but there will be a cycle of a planetary cycle, whether it is by transit or by progression, that will activate the rising sign, the esoteric ruler of the rising sign, the exoteric ruler of the rising sign, and then the planets that are, let's say for example that you have Aquarius rising. The exoteric planet ruling Aquarius is Uranus. Then you look in your chart, where's Uranus? Ah, Uranus is over here, it's in Aries. What planet rules Aries? It's Mars. So now you have Mars, you have Uranus, you have the rising sign, you have the placement of these planets, all go into a simultaneous activity. And something is taking place inside of you where you hear this call. And this call is, it's time to step your foot on the path, your path, that will lead you to the plan of your soul. So we're not left in limbo and having to guess, well, maybe that's when I stepped on the path, or maybe it was back when, or maybe I haven't. You can look at your chart, it's there, if you have a good astrologer. That'll help you. So, when you enter this path, it is important to observe certain things. For example, the most usual event is that your karma and negativity is going to make your life seemingly unusually difficult. For example, as soon as you enter into the path of the teaching, your business might change. Your family members might become difficult with you. And people in general start mixing your brain. It's so curious to me to see, and I think it will be for yourselves as well, because I'm assuming most people watching the video on YouTube are already on the path the way we are here. And you can compare your life before you stepped on the path to stepping on the path. And there is a conscious recognition that the difficulties you're experiencing now, which seem to be so rapidly coming forth to you, has purpose. Whereas previous to stepping on that path, your difficulties and problems were there, but they didn't seem to have purpose. They seemed to be random. They didn't seem to be part of a plan. And perhaps the most important point is that those difficulties did not give you a sense of direction, with one exception, and that one exception would be divine discontent. And divine discontent is another sign that your solar angel is trying to move you forward, to get you away from any inertia that you may be enslaved by or controlled by, so that you can move ahead. So these events and conditions are the result of your karma. When you become a more honest person and decide to follow the path, your soul says, wait a minute, what are you going to do with your past debts? You must pay them now. Now is when we magnetically, impulsively, through impulse, magnetically and through impulse, we instinctively begin to look for a teacher. We begin to find a teacher that leads a group that we feel at home with. It's very interesting. The soul says, wait a minute, what are you going to do with these past steps? Say, I'm going to find a teacher. I'm going to find a teaching. I'm going to find a group of people that know what I'm going through. And now I'm going to have the strength, the courage, the insight, the wisdom to pay this karma. At this moment, when you are most vulnerable, dark agents and negative forces will take advantage of this condition by sneaking doubt into your thinking process. And this is where and how sometimes family members and friends begin to plant seeds of doubt. We hear you, dear. We understand you, dear. We recognize you are discontent, but you don't want to go this way because I want you to go that way. That way is the way I want you to go, not this way. There's your first test. So that's what I have for you this morning. It became more of an astrology class than about soul and karma, but they're all intertwined. And this is why we really encourage you to learn at least the esoteric significance of astrology, the energies of the planets and so forth. And it's why we practice and observe the full moon solar festival, we call it sometimes, every month. And we have books available, you can study, and what you want to do is, first of all, you want to learn what your sun, moon, and rising signs are. Those are the three key factors. Then you get your book open and you see what virtues are related to that rising sign. How can I practice this virtue this month? If the solar full moon solar experience is activating your rising sign, or your sun sign, or your moon sign. So you go to the books and you learn about the virtues related to these signs, and you will be advancing and progressing so much more rapidly on the path than you would without this help.